thanks everyone for joining who's here. I wonder if anyone has any questions. If not, I'll just talk about something. But Grant, do you or anyone have any questions you'd like to hear me to answer?
I've been reading in some other Hindu literature, they talked about, I guess the idea of every, human having a dharma, a right course in life, and I guess, a way to move through life skillfully and meeting, each karma they're supposed to face in that life. And being able to, I guess, work through it. So I guess it's really kind of similar to the other questions that you talked about. But I guess it's how do we kind of how do we get into that? How do we get into that how do we know when we're doing our dharma and I guess get into that space where we're not creating more difficulties for ourselves in this life.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a question. Thank you.
Okay. So the question is about Dharma. I don't know. We're recording this also to later upload the talk to the YouTube channel. And so I don't know if they can hear what's coming through the computer. So the question is about Dharma. What is Dharma? How can we live our Dharma? How can we know when we're on that right path? And Dharma is a very interesting concept. In the Western Abrahamic traditions, we have concepts of right and wrong, and everyone should be doing pretty much the same thing according to these concepts. These things are wrong, these things are right. But the concept of Dharma is more fluid. It's interesting. It doesn't work exactly like that. What's right for one person may not necessarily be right for everyone else. If someone is born in a different place in life, they may not have the same capacity. They may not have the same ability, the same wisdom, the same opportunities to do the same things. And so what a person's dharma is very individual. And I've said before, if someone is born as a thief in a family of thieves, maybe their dharma would be to steal well and to help the other thieves. And maybe not, maybe so. So it can be tricky to understand what is our dharma. And some of what can guide that, I think, is just our desires in life. If we have a desire to do some kind of work, if we have a desire to have a family, to have children, to have grandchildren, some of this may express the dharma. Really, dharma in this sense means our duty. Dharma in another sense could mean living along with spiritual teachings, trying to lead a spiritual life, trying to lead a life of seeking. But in this context, Dharma means really just our duty. What is our duty? And ultimately, if a person has a strong urge toward having family, having children, maybe that's on account of of karma that is unresolved from a past lifetime. Maybe there are ancestors that we haven't resolved all of our conflicts and resentment and attachments and desires. There may be debt. We may owe them something. They may owe us something. If your grandfather, your grandmother passes away and you resent them as they go, that resentment would remain. And it could be through having a family, having children, that those souls can come back into the family to continue working on those karmas. If a person has a desire to have a certain sort of occupation, or even if they're established in an occupation, if they have a desire to reach a certain level within that vocation, to get a promotion, to become a manager or whatever, that may be a part of their dharma. That may be something that's good for them to do, to benefit society, but to benefit themselves as well. So that's one key. We can follow these good desires. We don't want to necessarily follow every desire. Some desires may be misguided. A lot of people think some very violent and terrible thoughts when they get angry, or they speak out of anger and they say, oh, this is a bad person, I'm angry at them, I wish that person would die. Or people say things like this that they don't mean. But in anger, people decide to do things that may not be well conceived. A calmer person may not choose to do certain things. People act out in anger and they get themselves fired from their job. They get in fights with their family. They cause a rift that is difficult to heal. We don't want to follow any crazy desire that we have. We don't want to encourage people necessarily to follow any desire that they have. A very angry person, if they come to you asking for a gun, you should not give it to them, obviously. So we've got to differentiate what is a wholesome sort of desire. What is something that's good, that may be good for society. Souls need to come into the world to work on their karma, to live and enjoy life, and to work on their attachments to become free. Having a family, that can be a very good thing. Doing some work, that can be a very good thing. There's so many jobs that need to be done so people can live and have the level of comfort now that they do in the world. We have a greater level of comfort in the world than ever before in recorded history. There's more safety, there's better medicine, there's better hygiene and cleanliness. Even in the time of the pandemic, there's much more knowledge about germs and the way that viruses are spread and all that kind of thing, which has kept people potentially much safer than would have been in earlier times when we didn't have that knowledge. People have a lot of ability to move around, travel around, and to do much more. There's more wealth throughout the world. That's not to say people are not struggling and suffering. They are, but we have a great ability to enjoy life free from, it's not like in previous times when we had to just worry about where our next meal would come from. We have to go out and hunt or gather and fight other people. We don't have to worry. In most places in the world now, the war will break out tomorrow. The world is more peaceful than it's been in a lot of ways. There's still a lot of struggles, a lot of difficulties going on, but we have a great, great standard of living now compared to earlier times. And so it gives us a lot of freedom to look into really what is my duty and how can I better myself. Some of it also we could look at the other way. What are we afraid to do? What is a challenge to us? You know, someone may love the theater or something like this, but they have a fear of public speaking or being in front of people. They have a fear of performing. And so that may be some kind of attachment that could create a part of their dharma, to work to overcome that in some way. Not necessarily to go into the theater, but to find some platform on which they can do some kind of public speaking to overcome that, so that doesn't limit them in the future. It can be difficult, it can be complex to know what that path is, but really in life, when we come into a vocation, we feel good. We feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. A lot of people in the world now, they're just working some job, menial labor of some sort. They go and work and they take money at the cash register in a Target or a Walmart or something. And that may or may not really be their vocation. Maybe they have a hobby and that enables them to do it, and maybe that's good. But a lot of people are not happy with the work that they do. Probably they're not entirely fulfilling the highest potential of their dharma, working like that. We should follow our dreams to the extent that we can. We have to be practical. But that really guides us, because those desires there express our attachments. Whatever is binding us, whatever is keeping us from our highest potential. Really, ultimately, the highest potential is coming to a realization of the divine. That we're not just the physical body. That we're not all the thoughts that we have about ourselves. We're not any title that we have or name that we have or occupation that we do. Ultimately, through the spiritual practices, we can start to get free from that and experience subtler levels of who we are. That's the highest dharma maybe for everybody, but that may not be in the immediate future for everyone. A lot of people, they have a lot of desires in the world, and that's fine. As they seek those things, they have family, work a job, all these kind of things, they come closer to that goal because they overcome the attachments and obstacles within, like a fear of public speaking, for example. There could be many things like that. A lack of self-worth, a lack of feeling worthy to have success, a lack of confidence, all these kind of things. People overcome that sort of thing that holds them back by doing things in the world. And so people really come closer to that goal by living their lives in that way, to seek what good things that they want. There's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of people wrongly think that if you're doing a spiritual practice, you have to separate yourself from the world, you have to be like a monk, you have to go up into the Himalayas and meditate all day long. And you have to shun all these things of the world and not have a family. In India, a lot of people think they have to become like a monk. They can't have a family life, and really they're probably turning away from the very things that they need to do to come closer in their spiritual practice, because they're denying themselves the opportunity to face these attachments and to resolve what's unresolved with family members. Everyone we encounter, they say, there's some karma there, some reason, something it can do to uplift us if we allow it, if we look at that exchange in that way. So it's a very good thing if we have that awareness. But we can't skip the step of facing the things we need to in our life. We're born into a certain family for a certain reason. We have duties to that family we have to fulfill. There's some reason that we're there. There may be unresolved karmas. There may be debts that we owe. We have to pay those debts. Whether that's spending time and making the people feel loved and respected, or it's some physical debt of paying money that you borrowed in a previous lifetime and never paid back. We have to not ignore all these impulses, these desires. And again, it's not to say we have to follow every desire. Sometimes you can sit with a feeling of desire and it will pass. A lot of people have desires that are not necessarily healthy. I think of someone who has diabetes and then they're craving a piece of cake or something. That cake is going to be full of sugar, refined flour, and not benefit the condition of diabetes. And that craving is definitely not healthy. Could be that a person could sit with that desire and observe it and allow it to pass and come within to the reasons for that desire. They may be turning away from feelings of lacking things, feelings of disappointment, feelings of a lack of fulfillment. If they come to those feelings, they can understand what that's really about and try to seek those things in their life. A lot of people struggle like that. The people who just work in a McDonald's or something, or wherever like this, that it may not be their vocation. And that may be someone's vocation, and that's fine. But if it's not, then these people wind up with a lack of fulfillment, and they're not fulfilling their dharma. They're neither seeking something spiritually, nor are they seeking to do what they want in the world. Ultimately, they go together, though, because the world is a manifestation of the divine, and the world is a divine stage arranged and guided by the Lord to help guide us back, to free us from all these things that bind us, these limiting feelings about ourselves. In childhood, if people tell us a certain thing so many times, you're not good at math, you're not good at math, you're not, or whatever it may be, we start to believe it, and we start to live that. That becomes a part of our identity, which is not a true identity, it's a false identity. Maybe math is difficult for a certain math. It's been difficult for me. I can admit that. But it's not that I can't do it. It's not that I'm bad at math. I just need to be a little more careful than some people and take my time to do the calculations. I've never been patient to memorize all the multiplication tables and all that. We have calculators for that. I wouldn't say that I'm not good at that, but I do realize I need to work more to do that. But a lot of people get stuck in those thoughts, like, I'm not good at this, so I can't do this. And I've never let that limit me. I've never said, well, I can't do this in life because I'm not good at math. But I've heard people to say that. heard people to say, well, I'd like to be a doctor. I'm drawn toward healing people, but I'm not good with science, so I can't go to medical school. I would never do well in medical school. And ultimately, maybe they could. It may take them twice as much effort, 10 times as much effort as your average student. But if they really have enough desire to do it, they could try to do it. We can't ignore these things. We can't deny these impulses. And a lot of people make that mistake when they do a spiritual practice. They say, well, the end result is I should be peaceful. I should be happy. I should be detached. I should be not affected by anything in the world. But that's not living Dharma to try to act like that is happening. When we start a spiritual practice, we're at the beginning of the path, and we have to take every step down that path. And so much of the emotions that come up when things happen in life that are unexpected. And a lot of unexpected things have happened for people recently in the COVID situation. I've seen people to lose their jobs. I've seen people to lose their spouse of 30 or 40 years. I've seen several people to lose their home. All these kind of unexpectedly, people who are going to retire within a couple of years have lost their job just because everything was shut down. And so people have been surprised and people have been upset. We don't do ourselves any justice. We don't fulfill our Dharma by acting like we're not upset. Maybe a great yogi would not be upset, but we can't become great yogis by pretending that things are not affecting us. We can only become great yogis by noticing what's affecting us and going into that and resolving that. What is that really about? If you're upset, if you lose the job, lose the home or whatever, what is that about? Are you fearing for your ability? Are you fearing for your security, that you're not able to provide for yourself? That are you lacking faith in the Lord, faith in the universe? They say everything is as it needs to be. Everything that's happening is the perfect next step for us. And so finding the way to embrace the situation as it is, to adapt ourselves so that we can be as happy, as peaceful as we can. And sometimes that means you have to sit and cry about things that you've lost, or sit and worry and try to train the mind that, okay, you're feeling the worry now, but you can just feel that and release it, and you can practice to not feel as worried, to look at the same situation and to try to just practice not worrying about it. That's how we really change things. That's how we become actually detached. We can't just act like it's there. We can't act like we have that detachment if we're full of worry in the mind. Otherwise, we just repress it, and it builds up, and it turns into disease, or it turns into something that will bubble over, boil over, and explode and cause a lot of trouble. It's better to feel things as they come up, and life will present plenty of opportunities for us to do that. So thank you, Grant. That's a good question. I may stop there talking for tonight, and then what are we supposed to do next? Am I supposed to lead a meditation, or are we doing the chanting?